All right, good evening again, everyone. My name is Morade Olajubu, and I'll be your amiable moderator for this session. And I have with me Jude Labe, who will be our reviewer, who will be dissecting this particular chapter of the book for us. And as we all know, we just concluded the first law, which is make it obvious, right? And today we'll be looking at the second law, make it attractive. And the very first chapter, which is chapter 8 of the book, we'll be looking at how to make a habit irresistible, right? And so for the next 3 Saturdays, we'll be looking at this very second law. And for today, Jude will be our reviewer and he'll be the one he'll tell us what he wants to share with us. He will just do justice to the book. He'll break it down. And I'm sure at the end of the session, and after people have contributed, we'll also be able to take our lessons out of this evening session and also make our habits irresistible. So I'll just confirm, and Judy is on the call. Just confirm if he can hear us and if he can speak. Jude, kindly confirm you can speak before
Yes,
I. All right.
Moradeo. Yes,
All right.
Moradeo. Thank you very much.
So
I
I'll
can
be
hear you.
all right, no problem. So I'll be handing over to Jude at this point to do justice to us. And at the end, we'll make contributions and we'll wrap it up. Thank you. Over to you, Jude.
Okay. Thank you very much, Moradeo, and a good evening to everyone on the call today. I hope we're all having a great weekend. So this is going to be okay. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Jude Labe, and I'm your reviewer for this Saturday. Um, as Moradeo noted, we are looking at the second law, which is make it attractive. And under this law, um, the first principle is how to make a habit irresistible. That's chapter 8 of the book by James Clear. And so I'll begin my review now. So this particular chapter is very important because it gives us practical steps, towards starting great habits and maintaining them. So the book begins by looking at some major concepts. The first is the idea of a supernormal stimuli, right? So, and this particular concept is based on researches that have been done by neuroscientists and other scientists that try to understand how or what are the things that motivate us to make decisions or the things that motivate us to pick up certain behaviors. And so this concept of supernormal stimuli talks about how some things are regarded as heightened version of reality. So if you take, for example, the food industry, because the book makes a reference to, okay, the book makes a reference to the food industry to explain what a supernormal stimuli entails. So you would notice that in our world today, a lot of things have been made very attractive, right? And all of this is in a bid to make us maybe make a buying decision. For example, if you go to the store, if you want to go and shop for maybe clothes, you see how some of the clothes that you want to buy will be put on like on a mannequin, or they'll be styled in such a way that they will look very attractive to you. And all of that is done in order to get you to want to buy those clothes items. If you also look at advertising today, because the book also makes a reference to advertising, you find that on TV, you see how the models or the people that are used to advertise a product, let's say, for example, an advertisement for a toothpaste, you'd find that the model or the individual, being used for that advertisement will have perfectly white teeth. You see them with clear skin, all looking young. I mean, most times you see that a guy, a very handsome guy, a very beautiful lady, would be used in that advertisement. So all of this is actually done to get you attracted to that product. So they associate that product with something or people that you find attractive, right? So because they've come to realize that is how the human mind works. Things, actions that we find attractive, tend to pull us, closer, or create this desire in us to want, um, those things. So that's the idea of a supernormal stimuli, which the book, begins, or that chapter, How to Make a Habit Irresistible, begins with. Create a heightened version of reality because our mind would naturally gravitate towards anything that, raises our desire or interest in a particular thing. So after this concept, the book moves on to the dopamine-driven feedback loop. And I think where I found this really eye-opening or really informative is the fact that, because me personally, I used to think dopamine, I believe most of us are familiar with dopamine, and we know it's related to pleasure, right? Since the age of social media, I'm very sure a lot of us, have heard about dopamine countless number of times. So now, before personally, I used to think that dopamine was all about just pleasure. So anytime we were experiencing pleasure from doing a particular activity, we get that dopamine. But then the book, will I say, puts this in a different light completely, and like expands the idea of dopamine to say, not only do you get dopamine when you engage in a pleasurable activity, the anticipation of that activity itself can also cause your dopamine levels to rise. So that was really like informative for me. I didn't know that before. So dopamine is not limited to just engaging in a pleasurable activity or an activity that you enjoy. The anticipation itself, in fact, the book even goes further to say the anticipation of, an enjoyable activity might even give you far greater pleasure, right? Far greater enjoyment than the very activity itself. And I think I sort of agree with this. If you cast your mind to, let's take, for example, if there's, how this whole idea of crushing on someone can even be a more enjoyable experience for you than when, like, you finally, get to now know the person, or both of you are now like in a relationship. So it might be that before both of you got talking, that you were just, crushing on the person secretly. You were enjoying that whole sensation of, oh, I'm crushing on this person. But then when you now finally get to know that person, or both of you are like in a relationship, then you just notice that that enjoyment that you used to get when you were crushing on them is not as much as what you're getting now that you're with them. I mean, that's, will I say, a rough or an approximate example of what that particular concept of dopamine driven feedback loop. So in the same way, we can apply this to, creating a habit and also forming a habit. So if you are able to, put yourself in that state where you anticipate doing something, you anticipate carrying out a particular habit, it can be the drive or the motivation for you to now eventually carry out that habit, or maybe do that action that you were dreading, right? So it's still related to the whole idea of making a habit attractive, right? Because once it's attractive, it then brings up your expectation, right? You begin to expect the reward that you would get when you finally carry out that action, that activity. So we can use this well, I say mind habit that we want to start to, to look more attractive, right? And then to eventually go ahead to do that activity. So the book also expands on the applicability and usefulness of dopamine beyond pleasure, right? So it's also responsible for processes like and also voluntary movement. So essentially, dopamine is what gives you desire, and desire is what makes you do things. If you don't have desire, if you don't have dopamine, you may as well not live, right? That is one fact that the book emphasizes. So dopamine is like even the basis for why we are even on this call, right? Take me, for example, as the reviewer. I mean, I was anticipating coming up here to talk to you about uh, this chapter of the book. The whole period of anticipating me coming up on this call gave me a lot of, dopamine, right? But now that I'm even now talking, I don't, well, I'm enjoying, this, I'm talking, I'm enjoying this. But then it was a whole lot of, I mean, the rush of, well, I say dopamine was higher when I was anticipating getting on this call, right? Especially given that it's my first time, taking a review in this club. So dopamine, very important, even beyond carrying out a pleasurable activity while you're anticipating that activity. Dopamine can also be a big reason why you look forward to doing something. Okay. So the next uh, concept that I will look at, or that the book talks about, is temptation bundling to make a habit more attractive. So here, the author, that's James Clear, tries to, uh, you know, give us a way to hack our brains, our minds. So you know how you may want to do an activity that you prefer, that you want, right? As opposed to another activity that you have to. So let's say, for example, you want to, do your chores at home. Let's say for some of us, I don't like to wash plates, right? If you don't like washing plates, for example, if you're that type that after eating, you just keep your plates in the sink for, I mean, for only for how long, God knows, right? Something that you could do, right, to make that experience of washing your plates is to say, okay, maybe let me listen to my favorite song or my favorite playlist while I'm doing this activity. So that way you have bundled an activity that you do not like or you do not particularly enjoy with another activity that you enjoy. So you bundle them together, and that way you're now able to do those, or do those things that ordinarily you would not want to do. So you can also apply this to different aspects of your life. So you see how even today, some of these online learning platforms where you take courses and all that, you see how they try to gamify some of the learning in basically the lessons, the how if you're like taking a quiz or maybe you're learning a concept, they try to gamify it, make it enjoyable, right? They put them in like, you know, the so the duration is also very short. They gamify it, make it very attractive. It's also a way of bundling fun and learning. I mean, learning on its own is, I don't think is a fun experience, right? Especially when you're learning a subject that is very, very, difficult to grasp, right? So when you now infuse some of these activities that you enjoy, like there are some people that like to listen to music when they read, right? They're able to like read for longer when they listen to music. So that's a way of temptation bundling, which the book refers to. You're making that experience enjoyable. So let's say you're supposed to read by 8 p.m. today. You can tell yourself that, oh, I'm going to listen to that playlist when I'm reading. So that anticipation, right, will make you, easily pick up your book or pick up your material and begin reading by 8 o'clock, because you not only associate that time, 8 p.m., with just learn, but also listening to good music, right? So that's temptation bundling. The book also tells us or gives us a variation of temptation bundling, which is habits stacking, right? So how you can decide to, first of all, carry out an enjoyable activity that maybe is not so good for you, right? And then say, okay, after I finish this activity, I will now go and do the next activity which I need to do, right? So you do the activity that you want, and then you now follow up with the one that you need to do. So it's just a way of saying, okay, I have enjoyed this. Okay, so let me now pay for that enjoyment. And you can also turn it around also, where because you have like a challenging or a difficult activity to carry out in the future, you can say, let me do this activity that I like, that I enjoy, right? And then after I'm done with that, I can now go ahead and do the activity that I need to do, right? So that's a way of habit stacking. Yes, it's a way of habit stacking. Let me also give another example. Let's say in the office now, let's say somebody brings up a particular task, right? Or a problem that you need to resolve. Let's say they bring it about like around 12 p.m., 1 p.m. I mean, for most people, that's when they go for lunch, when they're at work. So one thing you could do is to say, okay, because I'm not feeling really keen on doing this activity now, right? Or maybe solving this problem or looking at this issue, maybe what I would do or say to myself is to say, let me go and have lunch first. And then after my lunch, I'll now come and face this problem. That's a way of habit stacking. So you go and do the pleasurable activity, the enjoyable activity, which is eating in this case. And then later on, you now go and face that issue or resolve that problem. So it's easier for your mind to process or even accept this sequence of activities because you have enjoyed something, so you don't find it really difficult to now doing something that you need to or that you have to do, right? So that's the whole idea of habit stacking. Okay, so those are some of the practical steps that we could employ when it comes to building habits. Okay, so I'm also going to look at some limitations which I think this particular um, chapter has when it comes to how to make a habit resistible. So the first is the book spoke or talked about the idea of making a habit attractive, right? So that you'll be more likely to do it. So I think the book does not give us a general consensus on what is attractive. So what is attractive to Moradeyo may not be attractive to me. So if there's a particular habit or action that we want to, make people adopt, right? We might expend a lot of energy trying to make it really attractive. Or maybe let's say there's a TV program. Let's say we work like in a media house and then we want to uh, advertise a product. We may spend hours, right, designing, trying to make a particular product very attractive so people will be more likely to buy it. But then by the time we're done, we may find out that we have alienated maybe half of our market because what we have done is, will I say, only attracted to a certain kind of people as opposed to, looking at something that will appeal to everyone. So there's that challenge to or that limitation from the book where it's not possible to agree on what's attractive. What's attractive to Kazim may not be attractive to Moses, for example. Okay. Also, yeah. Okay, so I'll quickly rush this also. So also the book acknowledges the fact that not all habits can be transformed into a supernormal, experience, right? So the book emphasized how we should try to make a habit enticing so that we'll be more likely to do it. But then there are some habits or some things that you can't just make them more enticing or more attractive. It will now need to take like willpower to do those things. And this brings me to the next point where the book underplays the role of discipline, right? Sometimes for some people, they don't need all this trying to make a habit attractive or trying to, do the temptation bundling or habit stacking. For them, it's all about discipline. It's all about making a conscious effort to do something. If you know you should be doing something, you make up your mind and you do it. So the book does not acknowledge the fact that there are people who don't need all of this hacking in quotes to carry out an activity or to perform an action. And also, lastly, some activities cannot be bundled together. So you just have to do it one time, or let's say sequentially. So the example I gave about washing your plates and listening to music. Not all activities may fit into that framework, right? Some activities you just have to do them alone if you're going to get the right result or the maximum output. So I'll just stop here and say overall the book was, I say the chapter has a lot of nuggets to take home with. Yeah. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Jude, for the fantastic review. So please, it was awesome. Please, if you have comments, comments or additions, you could raise your hands. Thank you so much. Okay. Pending when anyone raises his hand or her hand. So yeah, so I'll just quickly give my own take, right? So James Clear rather made us understand that creating lasting habits, we need to make them attractive. Yes, and that was the first lesson that Jude mentioned, making habits attractive. If you look at social media today, all these content creators, I'll use content creators as an example. I noticed that most times or on my status nowadays, I just see people saying maybe I need to start content creation too because they are making money there, right? So this content creator have made it so attractive that everybody wants to go into it, even though it's difficult, but people just want to go into it because it's attractive, right? So make whatever you're doing, making it attractive. That's one lesson that Jude earlier mentioned. Then he talked about dopamine drives motivation. Yes, I see this a lot in a lot of people. I give another example, my children. Sometimes, some weeks ago, their language teacher was complaining that they were always making noise in the class. And I was like, I'm no longer your friend. If you guys cannot calm down and no high five, nothing for you guys. And last week, when in fact, they just said, Mommy, 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 mommy. I listened well in my class, so, right? They were anticipating reward. They were like, Mommy, are you going to get us anything? We really listened well. Can you call my teacher and confirm? As in, it really, at that point, when I was reading this chapter, this thing just took me back to the memory of how they were so happy that day. And yes, they anticipated reward. And I guess because they were like, if I do this very well, my mom will actually give me something. And since they anticipated a reward, their brain released that dopamine, which motivated their action to listen well and also to summarize what they learned at that particular classroom that day. So yes. Then the third lesson is temptation bottling, like the formula that he gave in the book, right? He said after what your current habit is, then what the habit you want. Like, so maybe, for example, after I conclude my day activity, I ensure that I will read my favorite chapter of whatever book I want to read for that month. So I know that at the end of the day, I've done my work, which is the habit I need as at now. I need to keep going. So I need to do my work, right? And what do I want is I need to read this book. I need to understand. I need to improve my vocabulary. I need to do this. I need to do that. That is what I want, my future need, right? So you already explained that part. Hey, it's 8 o'clock. Okay, then everything now summarizes everything to link our habits to our desires, which he ended for us, right? So I will just close by saying that we should apply these lessons we have listened to make our habits, our daily habits, more attractive. And this will increase our chances of building last lasting positive changes to each and every one of us, right? So, in fact, Jude just summarized. He broke down. He gave us specific examples. He broke down everything so that at least even if we didn't even read the book, we can still remember it, right? We can still remember. We can still go back to the recording, check, and even as we're reading along, we also apply these live scenarios to it. So thank you very much, Jude. The first part is spent our time. So I'll say thank you to everyone that joined. Please follow us on all our social media handles, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, the channels on WhatsApp. Invite your friends and family to be part of our small community. Also on Instagram, drop comments on our YouTube. Please watch our videos, send your likes, put your comments, and if you have any way we could improve the whole activities we're doing, you can also drop your suggestions. So I'd like to say thank you to everyone for joining again this evening. See you same time next week. And we hope it's also going to be a wonderful Saturday for every one of us. Thank you and have a lovely evening. Bye.